Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from the Carpathian Basin here in Budapest. I hope everybody is having a good start to their weekend. In this class, we are looking at questions and answers from our members about the IELTS exam. We have this class once every couple weeks for our members. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. And in 90 minutes, we will have an all chat class focusing on speaking part 3. So hopefully everybody will stay tuned for that. Hi, Abhishek. Good to have you join in while we wait for some more of your fellow members. This lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com. For the academic version of the exam, check us out there. For the general version, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of HD videos with the right strategies and examples to get you those high band scores, help you improve your English and your communication. Our academic website looks like this. Click that big red button to join the premium package. Spend a couple dollars to save yourself a lot of stress and time. For the general version of the test, it's the green background. Click that big red button to join us there. And I see lots of members are hopping on board now. That's great. Students, if you have questions about the exam or our products, just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com and I will gladly do my best to answer and get back to you promptly. All right, so I see lots of members in now. Hi, Rajveer. Hi, Tito. Hi, Boomi. Hi, Vimal. Let's get right into it. So, members, just start firing away those questions. Ask me whatever you'd like. And of course, I will do my utmost to get back with the right answers. So, if you've been studying and doing your reading and practicing your writing, speaking, listening, I'm sure you've come up with some questions along the way, maybe some challenging exam questions or some confusing methodology or uncertainty about what's going on with the IELTS right now with this pandemic. So whatever questions you have, now is a good time to share with all of us. There are no bad questions. If you're thinking it, there's a good chance that some of our other viewers are also thinking about that question as well. So whatever comes to mind. And of course, I have some materials to help us with examples and so on for the explanation. So just start writing your questions into the chat and we'll get right into it. I'll even set up my cursor here in the right position. And it's kind of a first comes, first serve basis. So I'll take questions more or less in the order that I see them in the chat. Okay, so Tito Bati says, I'm having difficulty developing the hook idea and others. Okay, well, let's stick with the hook idea, Tito. So Tito is asking about the hook, which is the very first sentence of your task 2 essay. So how can I come up, this is your question, Tito. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit here, is how can I come up with a good hook for the introduction of task 2. Okay, so Tito, remember the hook, okay? So there are actually in essay writing a lot of different ways to write the hook, but for the IELTS exam, you really only need one. So for the IELTS, the hook should be an interesting statement that includes the topic of the question. It should only be about, this is a rough estimate, 8 to 12 words. So a simple sentence. Okay, you don't want to make mistakes with your hook, Tito. Now, to come up with a good hook, think about an interesting global fact, Tito. Okay, and I see lots of questions. That's great. So think about a global fact that is interesting for most people in regards to the topic. Okay, so the topic in yesterday's task 2, Tito, was parenting strategy. Okay, so what you want to do, Tito, is visualize parenting strategy. Okay, so visualize different parenting strategies and put yourself into the shoes, even if you're not a parent. Of course, if you're a parent, that's going to help you, Tito, but if you're not, just try to put yourself into the shoes of a parent. Okay? What are the challenges of parenting? What are different parenting styles? One of the very important approaches or methods, Tito, to coming up with the right hook is when you feel like you're stuck, don't try to force your brain for an answer, but instead turn towards questions. Okay? So don't just think answers, but think of questions, as I just showed you. Okay, and then you can come up with hooks like most parents feel uncertain at times about the best approach to raising their children. Okay? Or in today's fast-paced world, effective parenting can be very challenging. Okay? And I could come up with at least 10 more of these, Tito, just because I'm simply visualizing, empathizing with parents and the idea of effective parenting and asking questions, okay? And then you can come up with these. And again, you want to keep them short. So this is about as long as you want the hook. And you want to practice that, okay? So simple is not easy. You need to practice, and that's important to keep in mind, okay? Simple does not mean easy, so you have to practice, okay? And if you have more questions about that, Tito, just try some task 2 questions. Try to do only the hook. Send me an email, and I'll let you know if you're on the right track or not. Okay? All right. Let's go to the next question. Tito, if you're still unclear, again, send me an email. Okay? All right, Rajveer has a very good question. So Rajveer is asking, what type of mistakes cost the most band scores in writing and speaking? That's a really good question because I think there's a lot of confusion about that, Rajveer, or a lot of people don't have a clear idea. So Rajveer is asking, what kinds of mistakes cost the most marks in speaking and writing sections? Okay, there's a very simple and quick answer to that one, Rajveer, and it's a simple and easy answer, but it's not necessarily an easy one to catch or to correct, okay? So students lose the most band scores for incoherent communication. Okay, so this means if the examiner cannot understand what you are saying because of your accent, for example, which is not actually that common. They do understand most pronunciations and accents, so pronunciation is not so important because most of the information is usually clear. However, awkward grammar and going off topic usually lead to confusion for examiners, and they take away points. Okay, so that's my clearest answer that I can give you, Rajveer, is coherence. Okay, so I think a good follow-up question here, let's take this one step further, is how can I overcome coherence mistakes? I think that's a really good follow-up question for this one, if you all agree with me, is how can I overcome coherence mistakes? Okay. Coherence mistakes. So how can I overcome these coherence mistakes? Of course, the simple answer here again is you have to check your speaking and writing with others for such mistakes. Get feedback. If you discover coherence mistakes in your writing and speaking, you must target these before going any further in your study. Okay, so don't just ignore your coherence mistake. Don't just think, oh, okay, next time I won't make that mistake. No problem. You have to identify, why did I make this coherence mistake? What is it in my speech? What is it in my writing that's confusing my listener? Is it because I'm not using some kind of grammar correctly? Is it because I'm missing key words from my sentences? Or is it because I'm missing key ideas from my sentences that is difficult for the audience to fill in or to complete? Okay, that's why I keep telling you to think about your reader or your listener as an alien. Think about them as if they came from another planet. They're clever, they're smart, but they don't know the information that you know. So don't assume that they can fill in those blanks. Finish your sentences, finish your ideas, okay? So coherence mistakes are definitely the ones that cost most students their marks, all right? You can get a very high band score if you're coherent and you have some spelling mistakes, some pronunciation mistakes, even if you're repeating some words. As long as it's coherent, as long as the examiners can understand what you're saying, you can get into those high band scores, all right? But you have to check for those, and it's difficult to do that by yourself. You usually need someone else to find coherence mistakes because, of course, for ourselves, most of the time we make sense, okay? What's inside of our heads, it makes sense. If you read your writing or if you listen to your speaking on your phone and it doesn't make sense to you after, you're like, what was I saying? What was I writing? Then there's definitely some mistake there that you have to correct, okay? All right. Hopefully that answers that question for you, Rajveer, as clearly as possible. Okay, Bhumi is asking a question. So if I forget to write in conclusion in task 2 or in summary, how many points do I lose? Okay. So this is Bhumi. If I forget to write in conclusion in my conclusion, how many points do I lose? Okay. The answer, Bhumi, might surprise you, is maybe none. Okay. All right. A good conclusion does not really need to be introduced. I'll teach you an interesting fact here. Although high school teachers and IELTS examiners like to see the leading expression in conclusion, university professors do not. Okay, so this is kind of a funny one. In high school and in the IELTS and IELTS training, they'll tell you write in conclusion for task 2, or write in summary, or to sum up for task 1. And that's fine. You should do that. If you don't do that, it won't necessarily bring your mark down as long as you have a clear conclusion or a clear summary. Why? Because readers know that the last paragraph is a summary or is a conclusion of an essay, especially when it's clear from context. In university, if you write in conclusion, let me do this because this happened to me in first year of university, and it happens to many students, not just from one professor, but many professors in many schools. If you write in conclusion in your university paper, and then you keep going, don't be surprised if you lose a % for writing in conclusion. The professor will do this. Actually, they'll take that much nicer red color for you. I'll go like this, and then my red pen's dying, so I'll switch back to blue, but they'll circle it and they'll go, yeah, I know. Don't waste my time. So they'll make a funny comment like that, okay? Because as you can imagine, if a professor has 200 students, even if they have markers helping them, and every year, every student for every paper is writing in conclusion, then they have to look at the words in conclusion 10,000 times each semester, and they get pretty sick and tired of it. So they just keep circling in first year and saying, yeah, I know, don't waste my time. By second year, they won't circle it. They'll just drop your % down by a mark, okay? So kind of a funny fact. But Boomy, to get back to the point, you won't necessarily lose any marks if you forget to write in conclusion. You should, but you don't necessarily lose any marks for that, okay? All right, let's go to the next question from Abhishek. Okay, Abhishek says, I have a couple of questions. Well, let's start with one, Abhishek. In speaking part 2, talk about a female leader. Can we talk about a person who is dead in this question? Yeah, okay, Abhishek, that's a good question, right? That's a really good question. So who can you talk about based on the tense of the question? From what you wrote there, Abhishek, yes, you can, okay? Because it doesn't say talk about a current female leader or talk about a leader in your country who is active now, okay? This is why, Abhishek, you really have to be very careful with that first statement on the cue card and read it twice. If the statement, Abhishek, okay, so can I write about a deceased person if the question asks, talk about a female leader, okay? So pay attention to the whole card, Abhishek, because if the follow-up question is, what do they do, okay, then you have to talk about someone who is alive right now, okay? Or imagine it, pretend the mayor of your city is a female person. If you can't think of a current living female leader, you don't have to tell the truth, Abhishek. So you can think of a male leader and change their name. So let's say it's Michael Smith, change it to Michelle Smith and pretend that Michael Smith is a woman and talk about Michelle Smith as if they are that way. The examiner is not going to check up and see if that person really is who you say they are. They just want you to speak, okay? So it's okay to be imaginative, okay? But it has to be believable. If it doesn't say what do they do, or if it says what do they do, or what did they do, like this, okay, so looking at the next questions, then you could talk about a female leader who's no longer alive. So be really attentive, pay close attention to the tense used in the question, okay? Now, the other trick that you could do, Abhishek, is if you're thinking about a female leader who has died, then pretend like they're still alive. Okay. So, but make sure it's somebody that maybe your examiner doesn't know. So they don't think, well, wait a second, hasn't that person died already? So that's another trick that you could do. Okay. I hope that answers your question, but look at the questions carefully on the card. All right. From this one, talk about a female leader, it doesn't matter. But from the follow-up, it matters. Okay. So look at all the questions on the card and read the first one carefully twice. All right. Charlie Sen says, sometimes lots of information in one reading passage. In that case, how can I figure out what the paragraph is about? Okay. All right. That's a good question, Charlie, and I know what you're talking about. Okay. So Charlie is asking, when there is a lot of information in a reading paragraph, how can I establish what the paragraph is about? Okay. Yeah, sometimes you'll see those. So sometimes when you're in an IELTS reading passage, you'll see a really long paragraph. Okay, a really, really long paragraph. This is where you can employ a really useful strategy of breaking the paragraph into subparagraphs in your mind. Okay, so break the paragraph into smaller pieces as you visualize. You can even draw a line where you feel that new information, almost like a new topic sentence, is being presented. Okay, on your actual exam paper. So I'll show you an example of that here in a second, Charlie. Let me just look for a nice long paragraph that I think will have lots of information in it. Let's see if this one. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a long paragraph. Sometimes shorter paragraphs will contain lots of information. Let me see if I can. I have to do some quick reading here. Most paragraphs you will find that it's just one. Okay, not that one. Okay. Still not. Even though, so this one here looks like a really long paragraph, but this one is still all just talking about government and economic crisis. So, but I know there are some like that. So, yeah. So here, I know there's a short one that's like that. Okay. So have a look at this one here. It's actually not a long paragraph, it's a short one, but it kind of has 2 points. Okay. So here, paragraph D says the main argument in favor of lotteries is that it is harmless fun which results in a tax income that often goes straight to community programs such as sports or the arts. Many community programs rely solely on lottery finances to operate, so in this sense, the lottery is a positive good. However, there are many people, often poor people, who become obsessed with gambling and the lottery, and it starts to take over their lives for these people. So the lottery is detrimental. Okay, it's a shorter paragraph, but here we have clearly two pieces of information. So one strategy that you could use for this in your actual exam, if you were reading this passage, Charlie, is as soon as you get here, you can do a line like that on the paper. And this line will help you to recognize and remember that this part and this part discuss two different ideas. Now, when you're visualizing, of course, you see here people having fun and community programs getting money from the lottery. So there's a new gym in your town, or there's a new school and it's supported and built, or a new sports program, a new football club, and it's built by lottery money. And then here you switch your visualization and you recognize that there's a person who is taking every dollar out of the bank machine and they're borrowing money from their friends to go to the casino or to buy lotteries and gamble, okay? And you can mark. And these words like however will give you usually an indication of that change, that there's a new idea or concept being introduced in the same paragraph. So again, just draw this diagonal line in that part of the paragraph, and that will help you to visually identify those multiple points. I hope that makes sense. People do that in editing, by the way, for that as well, those line breaks. There's an idea break there, so I'm not inventing that. It's a standard in proofreading and editing that a new idea is being introduced. I hope that makes sense, Charlie. All right. So let's see the next question. Really good question so far today. I can tell some of you have been thinking of these. All right. Let me erase this. So Roshni Kunte is saying, sir, I started doing grammar, but it is getting difficult to learn so many rules. Okay, yeah, that's a really nice question, Roshni, and I'm going to get into that one a little bit. I think that's a challenge for a lot of your peers as well. So Roshni is saying, or asking, how can I keep up with all of these different grammar rules, remember them, and use them when I need to? That's a good question. All right, practicing questions is a good idea. So, Roshni, that's a great question. And the reason why a lot of students have this trouble or this difficulty with grammar, even native speakers, by the way, so native English speakers also have this problem in their own way, is because people are not taught why you use certain forms of grammar. So the difficulty results from a lack of understanding by people of why certain types of grammar are used. So the most important, Roshni, is learn the reasons for grammar. Okay? Once you do this, and it makes logical sense in your mind, it will become much simpler to not only remember the rules, but also to use them. I'll give you an example here, okay? And for all of our students, if you go to your course at aehelp.com or gieltshelp.com, in the writing section, we explain these reasons very, very clearly, okay? So it's, again, using critical thinking, Roshni, when you're learning grammar. So I'll give you an example with present perfect, okay? All right, so what is present perfect? Okay, the answer is it's subject plus auxiliary. So you don't need to remember these words unless you're planning to be an English teacher. auxiliary, I don't even know how to spell it, auxiliary verb have, or has, right, depending on plural, singular. There we go. Plus past participle plus object. Okay, so an example here, let me just move this to the next page. So an example of present perfect would be like, I have seen the Eiffel Tower. Okay, so this is your present perfect here. It's the rule or the setup here for the grammar is subject, auxiliary verb have, past participle verb, and the object. Okay. A simple example is, I have seen the Eiffel Tower. Nice. Okay, so you learned the structure, you learned what it is, and you even see the how here, so how you can have an example of it. But the better question is, why? So why am I saying this instead of saying, I saw the Eiffel Tower? Okay, so the question that you should be asking when you're learning grammar is always the why question. And again, this is just one example, but it's true for all grammar. So why would a person say this or write this instead of just, I saw the Eiffel Tower? Anybody know the answer to that? So why would a person just not say, I saw the Eiffel Tower, which of course is simple past tense? So why not use the simple past tense? Why would a speaker choose to use the present perfect? So the simple question here is, why use the present perfect? Okay. Can any student tell me the answer for this one? Let's see if anybody's learned this information. Yeah, exactly, Rajveer. Okay. It's to express or emphasize the experience. Very good. So I can tell that Rajveer has been looking into this, right? Because the speaker wants to emphasize the experience of seeing the Eiffel Tower. Okay, so how does it work? I'm going to show you this and it'll make sense. So how does present perfect work? And you've probably seen this in your grammar books, or you learned it in your English class. So here I am, okay? This is the time, so this is the past. This is the present. And this is the future. And many of you, I'm sure, have probably seen this diagram before when you learned present perfect, that there's an event in the past, okay? That event continues until the present. So this is me now, or me, okay? So it continues until the present, and then it probably continues into the future time as well, the unknown future. So this is the timeline, okay? This is time here. All right? So that's how it works in concept, that grammar, all right? Now, when we have an important experience in our lives, then that experience stays with us. So we want to tell our reader using grammar that we had this experience that was a big experience, and it's staying with us and will likely stay with us into the future. So that's why when I'm speaking to someone and I tell them that I've seen, I'll use the contraction, I've seen the Eiffel Tower, it's because a native English speaker will feel that, oh, so this was a big experience, this happened to you, this experience is staying with you and will stay with you into the future. So you're communicating all of that with that sentence, okay? So this sentence here, the I have seen the Eiffel Tower, especially for a native speaker, but of course every high-level English speaker that feels this grammar will conclude the following information automatically when they hear it, which is, okay, so I saw I experienced seeing the Eiffel Tower at some time in the past, and this experience stays with me until today and will likely continue to stay with me into the future. Okay, so humans were very complex beings, and so complex grammar helps us to express our complicated thoughts. Just imagine if in English we didn't have the present perfect, and every time we had to state it like this. So we meet on the street, we're talking about traveling around the world, we're talking about France, and when we talk about the Eiffel Tower, instead of saying to you, I've seen the Eiffel Tower, I say, oh yeah, I experienced seeing the Eiffel Tower a few years back, and this experience is still with me today, and I'm sure it will probably continue with me into the future. You're probably, by the third present perfect sentence, going to go, okay, Adrian, it's been nice talking to you. I'm going to go have a cup of coffee now after all that. So grammar helps us to include a lot more information in a lot shorter time, in a lot more concise way. That's right, Rajveer. So Rajveer is saying it helps us to make our language more concise. Now, just to kind of finish this idea, because present perfect is not just used for experience. So I'm going to give you all 5 of them. The reasons that present perfect is used in English are, and there's 5 of them, okay? 1 is to show experience or non-experience. What are the other ones? And I think maybe I did a grammar lesson on this a while back, so if some of you have been members for a long time, you might know this. What are the other 4 reasons that people use present perfect? And it's all connected to this concept of time. So past continuing until now and probably into the future. Okay? So so Hemant says activities completed in the past. No, Hemant, that's still just experience. So nope, not to express hobbies. Try to think more globally. Okay? Experience is kind of the main one. It's the easiest way to think about it. Let me give you, yeah, Tito, very good. Change in time is one. So Tito says change over time. Okay, like, wow, you have really grown much since we last met. So that would be change over time. Wow, you have really grown much since we last met. Rajveer, very good. Achievement is another specific situation. Okay, so for example, Canada has won the gold medal in the Winter Olympics for hockey. Yeah, so when we achieve something, we really want to emphasize that experience. So we say, wow, you have won the prize. Okay, so achievement, change over time. What other? There's 2 more. There's 2 more important ones. Not evidence. Okay, I'll give you a tip. Let me give you the sentence and see if you can come up with the reason. So this I'll do in a question format. Teacher asks the student. Have you done your homework? Okay, so this is a question in present perfect. And teachers will often ask their students using the present perfect, have you done your homework? Parents will also ask their children, have you done your homework? Children or fellow students will often use the the simple past, did you do your homework? So what do you think? So the student will say, or ask from the other student, did you do your homework? Okay, so why is the teacher asking with present perfect and the fellow student asking with simple past? What do you think is the logic there? It's a really, really good one. Or I'll give you another example. I'm asking my car mechanic. Have you fixed my car yet? Okay. Or maybe your boss is asking, have you handed in your project? Why would they do that? The word that I'm looking for starts with an E. The second letter is an X. The third is a P. And it's not experience. Okay. Anybody come up with it? Carolina, almost. Almost. So Carolina says, is it something like obligations? Yeah, you're close, Carolina. It's expectations. Okay. So again, use your logic. It's expectations. Okay. So the teacher expects students to finish their homework. You expect your mechanic to fix the car on time, right? If you're just asking from your friend, you don't expect them to finish their homework. They either did it or they didn't. You maybe just want to know because you're comparing to yourself, right? So here you're showing your expectation of a person using the present perfect. Now you can see why it's so important to control grammar in your speaking and in your writing. Okay, so it's the expectation of doing it. And if you think about what I showed with the time, that makes sense, right? So past event continues until now and will likely continue into the future. Now, if you think of expectation, okay, if you had a problem with your car and it broke down, and here you're asking the mechanic, have you fixed my car yet? Is your expectation going to disappear into the future, or will it still be there in the future? So will your expectation remain for the future if you are dealing with your car mechanic, or will you say, okay, don't worry about it, just do whatever you want with the car, I'll come back and pick it up next week? It's going to stay, right? Hopefully a lot of you are thinking that. You're not just thinking, oh, I'll just leave my car there and forget about it. So with expectation, it makes a lot of sense because your expectation starts in the past, it's present now, and you want the audience, you want your listener to know that, of course, your expectation will be there tomorrow and next week. It doesn't just disappear, okay? It stays. That's right, Hamad. So we use present perfect for expectation. And I see that a lot of you got the fifth reason, which is repetition over time. So, for example, Canada has won the Olympic gold medal in hockey 5 times. Okay, so this is telling your listener that there's repetition of the event happening over time. So in the past, Canada won gold in hockey. They won it again and again and again, and probably in the future, they will win at least a few more times. So that's your repetition over time. Okay, so again, the 5 reasons to use present perfect in your speech or in your writing are experience, change over time, achievement, expectation, and repetition over time. That's the best way to think about present perfect. And all of the negatives are true as well, like non-experience. I haven't seen the Eiffel Tower. It tells the reader it never happened in the past, and this is a non-experience that hopefully might happen in the future. Okay, Canada hasn't won gold in the Olympics yet for hockey. Okay, so non-achievement, non-change over time, non-expectation. I haven't done my homework. Okay, so all of those make sense. So what you want to do, I'm going to go back to, it was Roshni's question here. Don't worry, Roshni, I haven't forgot what you asked me. Okay, it's back here. So Roshni was saying, how can I keep up with all of these different grammar rules, remember them and use them when I need to? Roshni, when you're practicing your writing, when you're practicing your speaking, think about the information that you're putting down and ask yourself, am I using the best grammar to express this point, to express this idea clearly? As soon as you start to practice it, in the beginning it's difficult, but once you keep thinking of the reason that you're using passive voice, active voice, conditional, real conditional, not real conditional, direct speech, indirect speech. So I could go on, but once you realize why you're using each of these types of grammar, you will become much more proficient, much better at using them, okay? So always focus on the why. And unfortunately, a lot of grammar books, and I have to say a lot of teachers as well, forget to explain these why points to the students when they're teaching the grammar, or clearly explain these points. So you need to focus on them. But again, we explain these in the grammar lessons on our websites, the why reasons. So thanks for the question, Roshni. All right, that was a big one, and that's a really important one, okay? And it's one that all English speakers need to focus on, native and non-native English speakers, to improve communication. All right. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to try to take at least a few more. Pavan says, sir, how do I learn to write an essay? Should I go stepwise, like introduction, body, and conclusion? And how to quickly think about ideas? Okay. Well, Pavan, you should definitely go step by step when you're writing an essay. So you definitely start with the introduction, then body one, body two, and conclusion. But you should have a really clear idea of your introduction, body one, and body two before you start writing. The conclusion can develop as you finish your essay, but for the introduction and body one, body two, you should plan those out. You should think about them. And you should have that in your head before you put your pen to the paper or your fingers to the keyboard. 4 to 5 minutes. So in your 40 minutes to write task 2, Pavan, if you spend 5 minutes on good planning, it should be worth it and you will recover that time. Okay, Pavan? So 4 to 5 minutes of planning is definitely a good idea. Tito says, my foreigner cousin said that I have a British American speaking accent. Does it matter, or will I lose marks? No, you don't. I know they say for the IELTS that you should focus on either American or on British English to maximize your scores, but it counts for very little. Most people do not have either. Okay, so most people do not have a clear British accent or a clear American accent. And to make matters even more complicated, Tito, there is no such thing as a British or an American accent. That's very general. Okay, yes, I can hear if somebody is from some part of the UK, versus some part of the US or Canada. But even within the UK, there are a lot of different accents. Even within England, Tito, there are a lot of accents. Even within London, you can hear different accents. And the same thing for the US. Okay, different parts of the US, different parts of Canada have very different accents. And even in the US and Canada, in some cities, you can hear different accents. So don't worry too much about that at all. Okay, it's not going to be the deciding part of your mark. All right. So most IELTS examiners are not thinking, I wonder if Tito is speaking with an American or a British or a mix of both. They're not thinking that. Okay, they're not really thinking that. It has to be really awkward for them to pick at that. Okay. All right. Abhishek says, in writing task 2 in any type of essay, can I mention both sides, such as agree or disagree? No, absolutely not, Abhishek. So you really have to pay attention to the nature of the question. It's quite upsetting for me as an IELTS trainer that many students are taught to discuss both sides as if they're this objective being sitting on a fence. This is black, this is white, they both exist. It's very wasteful communication. We usually like to hear a position on an idea, okay? It's very boring for an audience to hear two sides of an argument and then be like, okay, you decide what you pick and you like. So we like the presenter to give an opinion. We like opinions, okay? Humans love opinions. That's why we're so opinionated. You should only discuss both sides, Abhishek, if the question asks you to discuss both sides. If the question says, do you agree or disagree, support your points, then you should either disagree or agree and find a couple of good points to support one side or the other. So pay close attention to the question, Abhishek. Don't just discuss both sides, because for some essays that will really drop your score. Okay, let me just quickly jump into my student account here. I'll show you one quick resource. So I'm gonna have to darken this a tiny touch. Just bear with me. Okay, just give me 2 seconds. So this is at ahelp.com. If you go into your blog, you'll find a lot of resources. So the blog is up at the top right there. And then in the blog, and we're going to be adding actually a lot more blogs in the coming few weeks. So check back. We have lots, but there's task 2 examples for a lot of different kinds of essays. And yeah, this one here, search for this one in your student account. So IELTS Task 2 Writing, Question Types, Answer Strategies. So open that up with Read More, and then you will see a nice long article that answers your question. And you'll see lots of students commenting on it as well. Okay, so check that out. That will give you a really clear idea of that. Okay, members, great questions today. Many, many more than I can possibly get to. So hold on to some of those. Keep them for future Q&A. Also, you can send me an email, or you can also post it on our website or on the YouTube community board. Okay, so you can post those questions that I can't or don't have enough time for in the YouTube community board. Or on the website. And then I'm sure a lot of other experts will likely have something to say about it as well. So fantastic questions today. Maybe I should do these Q&As a little bit more frequently. I'm feeling like a lot of students have questions these days. Again, visit us at ahelp.com for all of our viewers to get answers to many of your questions about English, grammar, the IELTS exam, communication, and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. You're very welcome, Roshni, Abhishek, Tito, Hemant, Carolina. It was good to see you in here as well. Again, check out our courses. Spend a few bucks. Save yourself a lot of anguish. And in 30 minutes, coming up, speaking part 3. So hopefully I'll see you there. Bye for now. Much love.